webinar will be recorded. And so, yeah, then you will be able to access the replay online after it is finished. So just as a very brief introduction, so I'm Thomas Garabetian. I'm working at EGEC, the European Geothermal Energy Council, and I will be doing a bit the moderation of this webinar, which will be on the topic of the role of innovation in the consolidation of the global geothermal industry. So this webinar comes as part of the GEO-ENERGY EUROPE project, which is a project that is especially looking at creating stronger and deeper relationship between the European geothermal industry and other industries globally, especially focusing on the creation of international business opportunities for European companies and companies in target markets, and more generally to consolidate the geothermal sector via the diffusion of know-how, of innovation, of manufacturing capacity, etc., globally. So these projects involve several partners together, which are going to various knowledge and background. So it is currently being coordinated by Geoscience Ireland. It also involves Paul Avenia in France. EGEC is also partners. GeoDeep, which is representing the French geothermal industry. Geoplat, which is the Spanish cluster for geothermal energy, and Jester, which is representing the Turkish geothermal power plant operator, Capus, which is a Hungarian cluster of earth science, Cosvig, which is Italian cluster around geothermal energy in Tuscany, and GEO-ENERGY Sede, which is a German cluster around drilling especially. So for today's session, we are going to be, as I mentioned, talking about the role of research and innovation in the internationalization of the geothermal industry. It is indeed a very important factor, because what we have seen, and you will see, all the speakers are going to explain that in much greater details and in a much more interesting manner. But we have seen that really geothermal now is growing, notably thanks to new technologies, new business practices, etc., and also development of new types of resources. And this capacity to rapidly integrate innovation has really been key in the growth of geothermal over the past decade, and is really the key to geothermal's future growth. So today we are going to have presentations by Fausto Battini, who is from Magma Energy, and is also ETIP-DG chairman and also representative from Rete Geotermica in Italy. We're going to have presentation also from Amanda Kolker, who is a program manager at NREL Laboratory from the US. We are also going to have a presentation by Alicia Victoria from Geothermica, who is going to provide to present us this very unique initiative that is notably providing some international cooperation between the US and Europe around geothermal energy. And then we are going to have a presentation from Virginie Schmidle, who is Secretary General of AFPG, who will be presenting a bit the feedback from the GEO-ENERGY project on the question of geothermal internationalization, also in the perspective of research and innovation. So now, Fausto, if you want to go ahead with your presentation.
Okay.
We can see your screen. Maybe if you're able to put the slides in full screen.
We are trying to do it, but yeah.
I think on the top in post, yeah.
Just.
All right. Meanwhile, maybe just to let you know, so the GEO-ENERGY EUROPE project and MetaCluster will be represented at the European Geothermal Congress in October in Berlin. So you'll be able to, if you're attending the Congress, you'll be able to exchange also with quite a few of the panelists that are today participating to this webinar, and with companies that have been involved in GEO-ENERGY Europe's activity throughout the project's duration. So yes, I think it's, if you click on impostazioni di visualizzazione, maybe on the top, the middle option.
Okay.
I think here, yeah.
Is it working now?
Yeah, it's perfect right now. So
okay.
First up.
So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to Amanda, because I think she is talking from California. Okay, my presentation is related to the European Geothermal Research Innovation Priority. The content of my presentation will be a short overview of geothermal development in Europe, and a brief introduction of ETIP-DG, research innovation priorities that were defined by ETIP-DG, and a few remarks at the end. This slide shows the situation of geothermal development in Europe. On your I hope the left side you see the electric power generation. Mostly, as you can see, most of the power plant is located in Italy, Turkey, and Iceland. A few other small power plants are distributed in several countries in Europe. Today, the installed capacity is 3.4 gigawatt electrics, able to produce about 19 terawatt hour a year of electricity. Regarding the heat and cooling plants, the total installed capacity is about 5.6 gigawatt hour thermal, gigawatt thermal, and there are about 364 district heating and cooling system actually in operation. What are the scenarios for geothermal development? A recent work done by people of TNO and other show different scenarios which involve both geothermal electricity generation and geothermal heat production. As you can see from the slide, there are the resource can be recovered in 3 different depth interval. In the first 200 meters, between 200 meters and 2 kilometers, and between 2 kilometers and 10 kilometers. As you can see, between 2 and 10 kilometers, that's a huge potential that can be deployed for generation of electricity and heat production. And so on the diagram that's shown on your right, you see that the statistic situation, I mean, what is the situation now? It's what we described before, but according to the forecast and the prediction made by this in this paper, we could reach about 200 terawatt hour produced by electricity for electricity production, and about 1 terawatt hour produced for heat production. In this case, if this scenario can be achieved, heat electricity demand in Europe can be significantly until covered by geothermal. But let's have a look at what are the main challenges for such a kind of growth in Europe. There are technological challenges. For instance, we need a more reliable predictive resource assessment, which affect significantly the initial risk of the project, because if the resource is not there, the project fail. Cost-effective drilling and completion technology for deep wells with temperature fairly above 300 C and depth fairly above 5 kilometers. We need to improve the power system efficiency at zero emission, because now, at least in Europe, is not allowed to discharge into atmosphere any kind of emission from the power plant. Another area which can create a big challenge especially during the operation, is lifetime of materials equipment, where we are operating in harsh environment. Scaling corrosion problems are quite common in a geothermal operation, as well as if we are going deeper, we have to face high temperature and high pressure condition. Another challenge to have a fruitful exploitation of resources is mineral extraction. As you know, lithium as other minerals can be contained in the resource, and this could be another value for the development of a geothermal project. Other area of challenge, how we can store thermal energy in a geothermal system, underground geothermal system, especially if you want to store at temperature above 50 C degree. Last but not least, how we can deploy magmatic and critical and supercritical resources, which are quite spread out in Europe, and not only in Europe. Now, these are technological challenges, but with these technology challenges, there are also some environmental concerns that sometimes limit or slow down the development of the geothermal. Seismicity, that sometimes associated with some operation, especially EGS. Air quality, because people don't like to have any smell coming, for instance, from H2S, or neither should have emission for cooling tower. So that's a point. Water quality. Sometimes there are some interaction with or could be interaction with between the geothermal fluids and shallow water, drinkable waters. People are quite scared about that. Another critical issue for which can limit the development is complexity of administrative process for licensing and environmental impact assessment. Last but not least, social issues, which are related mostly to the reluctancy of local community to host the new power plant in their territory, such as the NIMBY syndrome. Okay, so we need to pay very much attention to territorial integration, information sharing, and public community engagement. Now, why? What is ETIP-DG? ETIP-DG is a European technology innovation platform on geothermal, established in 2016, and is an open stakeholder group endorsed by European Commission, and include representative from industry, academia, research center, and sector association. It's an open platform, so everybody that can apply and become part of the DG, ETIP DG. Also, ETIP DG is actively collaborated with the European Technology Innovation Platform on Renewable Heat and Cooling, RHC platform, and as well as other ETIPs, which gather stakeholders from biomass, geothermal, solar sector, and so on. So the main aims of ETIP is to promote research innovation to enable geothermal energy to proliferate and reach its full potential everywhere in Europe, contributed to meet the decarbonization of energy system. Just a clarification, ETIP DG is not an entity which can perform by itself any research, but just aggregate different stakeholders and promote the research. The organization is shown in this table, and there are right now 8 working groups, one for georesource assessment, one for well technology, power system, materials, and so on. You can see in the slide. And through the working group, ETIP DG is able to provide, to define the research innovation priorities according to the input that were collected from stakeholders and for each technology sector, and prepare a strategic research agenda and implementation roadmap to be delivered to European Commission. Based on that, the European Commission can launch calls for research innovation project. And this the picture showed schematically what were the main deliverables: geothermal vision, strategic research agenda, and implementation roadmap. We are in the phase of implementation of the project of the research innovation priorities defined by research agenda, by strategic research agenda. And what is expecting the European Commission is that to demonstrate concrete results after the huge amount of activity done in research, basic research innovation. So all the project, or most of the project, will be on TRL higher than 5. Research and innovation agenda and implementation roadmap are periodically updated, and the next update should be end of this year or early 2023. What are the technical priorities which were defined in the roadmap?
Sorry.
Yes.
Can you maybe condense the end of the presentation to finish within maybe 1 to 2 minutes, just to keep to time? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. There are technical priorities, as already said at the beginning, not technical priorities, which are related to especially for regulation and so on, and social acceptance. And then there are priorities with lower tier level, which have to deal with advanced energy conversion processes, innovative concept of geothermal uses, and high environmental performance. I prepared a more detailed list of priorities. I'm not going to describe all of this, but you can find in the presentation. And rapidly, I go to my final remarks. As all of you know, geothermal resources are able to provide baseload and programmable electricity, heat and cooling, underground thermal storage, and strategic minerals such as lithium, silica, potassium, and rare earth. Some barriers, regulatory, financial, are present in Europe to develop a geothermal project, and we need the support of EU or European Commission and member states to setting a favorable frame to ensure the security for investment, because at the end of the day, the results of research and innovation should be transformed in a real project, and who make money in the project are the private investor, and the investor must have the quite comfortable level of security. So the implementation of research innovation, research innovation will create an opportunity to unlock new geothermal resources in many countries of Europe, which now have to face the energy supply emergency with the invasion of Ukraine and Russia, and so that contribute to achieve climate neutrality in EU 250. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Fausto.
Of course, if you have a question, you can ask now or send via chat. I will try to answer.
Yes, maybe I will check very quickly. So maybe we'll take one quick question now, and then we'll move on to Amanda's presentation, so we don't get delayed too much. But question from Lorraine de Vouton, asking about security of investment, whether we have an overview of all the insurance support schemes in the different European countries, similar to the de-risking fund in France, SAF. Fausto, do you have?
This insurance scheme is not so spread out, for instance, in countries like Italy or I don't know, in Germany, but it certainly is something that we need to try to expand from if you want that a private investor can afford such capital intensive and high risk project.
So thank you, Fausto. And now maybe we can move on to Amanda's presentation. So Amanda, if you're able to share your screen.
Yes, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. It's in full screen. Everything's great. So the floor is yours.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Good evening for you. Good morning for me. From Colorado, United States. I just wanted to thank you so much for including the United States in this discussion. We are a global community in geothermal. Sometimes it's hard to do cross-national research projects, at least from the US side. And so we couldn't be more grateful for Geothermica and these other mechanisms that provide this opportunities for international research and discussion. So thank you so much for including us. I am the Geothermal Program Manager at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the United States. For those who don't know, the United States has 17 national laboratories, each of which are dedicated to a specific scientific question or challenge. They started out in the 50s, dedicated to the atomic question, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory is one of the younger national labs. It was started out in the 70s, dedicated to the solar energy question. Then in the 2000s, they added wind, and only more recently have they really been engaged in geothermal energy from a national renewable energy perspective. But there is a lot of interest in the United States right now. Just to, as a context, we have a lot of conventional, unconventional resources in the United States. This is a map of a couple different types of geothermal resources. What it shows is identified hydrothermal resources, that's the yellow dots. There's also undiscovered hydrothermal resources or hot water, which can be used for conventional power production. And then the other thing this map shows is the favorability, and that's going to be the colors from cool to warm, of petrothermal resources, or that can be produced by technologies such as EGS or enhanced geothermal systems. The current geothermal production in the United States is about almost 4 gigawatts, which sounds great, but almost all of that comes from just a few power plants. The USGS, or the US Geological Survey estimate was that we have, almost triple that in systems that have already been identified, could be exploited today. And then we have about 10 times that in undiscovered hydrothermal. And then a few years ago, the National Renewable Energy Lab, NREL, did a study of how much potential there is for petrothermal or EGS type resources. And the number is, over 5 terawatts, or over 5,000 gigawatts of electrical potential. So there's a lot of resource in the United States, most of which is undeveloped. Here is just a picture showing the recent power plants that were added in the last few years. They're all in the Western US. They're all at known hydrothermal sites, not necessarily high temperature sites, but they're all sort of in this conventional hydrothermal category. And so we want this to accelerate. The history of geothermal development is maybe interesting to look at. So on the top, we see a plot of power generation additions by capacity over time. On the bottom, we see additions of district heating systems over time. And you can see, I tried to normalize the trend because the plot of power generation starts in 1970 and the plot of district heating starts earlier. But you can see there was a giant boom in the 80s. And then there was a big flat line in development from the 90s up until more recently. And there has been a bit of an uptick, but it's not fast enough to meet our decarbonization goals. That is also reflected in the district heating. We have only 23 district heating systems in the United States as compared to your 364 that Fausto just mentioned. And these were almost all installed back in the 80s. So many of these are over 40 years old. They're all still running. They're doing great, but we haven't put any new ones online except for 4 in the past 2 decades. And that's really a function, as you can see, of oil or gas prices in the United States, and some other factors too. And so the pie charts on the right just show how old not only power generation systems are in the United States, but also the district heating systems. The vast majority of both of those are over 30 years old. So that's where we are in the United States. Now, in 2019, there was a report put out by the Department of Energy called the GeoVision study. And so it presents a vision for how we can get to better deployment of geothermal, not just electricity, but also heating and cooling. So on the left, we see the results of some of that analysis that, if we made some technological changes and primarily getting EGS commercialized, and if we made changes to the regulatory structure, which would essentially allow for faster timelines of development, we could get to 60 gigawatts of capacity by 2050. And that's electrical. And that could actually account for 8.5% of all US generation by 2050, getting us much closer to some of our decarbonization goals. And that would result in lots of avoided CO2, as we all know. The interesting thing about the GeoVision is that it came back to this question of heating and cooling, which had been ignored in the United States for a very long time. And what that analysis predicted was that there's the economic capacity today to deploy up to 28 million individual buildings or homes with ground source heat pumps or geothermal heat pumps by 2050. And economically today, there's the capacity to install up to 17,500 district heating systems in the United States by 2050. And that's based on the geothermal supply and also the demand centers. So these are based on scenarios. There's lots of other scenarios that I didn't present. And all I want to say is actually we're recently revisiting this now in 2022. And there might be some new information coming out from the Department of Energy on even higher goals. And so, regardless of the numbers, we have a big job because we are nowhere near any of these numbers right now today, and our trajectories are not on the track for this. So then how do we get there? Well, the NREL vision for 2022 is, that our value proposition, I don't have to tell you this, but is that geothermal provides both heat and power with availability, and those services increase grid reliability and security with the smallest footprint. And we really feel that geothermal technologies are key to the deep decarbonization of the nation's thermal and electrical energy systems. Europe has been saying this for a long time, but this is the first time that this has all been consolidated, as far as we know, in the United States, this vision. And so what does that mean for research? That's what my national lab does, is it takes on, what we find to be the most pertinent research challenges for this problem. So obviously we all have a global challenge about reducing costs of geothermal, making it more economically competitive, and also enabling geothermal anywhere through new technologies. So if we want to produce power anywhere, we need to go deeper, we need to go hotter, we need to use enhanced geothermal system technologies or other emerging technologies that allow for non-hydrothermal type resources to be used. Also, if you think about geothermal anywhere, we can also think about geothermal heat pumps. You can pretty much deploy shallow geothermal anywhere, and there's lots of great companies in Europe doing that right now. Another research challenge is decarbonization of buildings, industry, and agriculture using geothermal heating, cooling, and storage. So underground thermal energy storage was mentioned. There are other ways to store energy in the subsurface. You can store it mechanically. You can store it with chemicals. And also you can boost those storage underground technologies with other renewable energy technologies and integrating those. Another resource challenge I think that we really have a mandate today is deployment. We hear this a lot in the United States. The climate mandate says we need to deploy these yesterday. The geopolitical mandate says we need to deploy these. So how do we demonstrate and validate some of these hybrid geothermal systems and some of these new technologies to accelerate deployment? Another big piece for the United States is resilience. And so we, us in the geothermal community, we know that geothermal heat and power does foster community and grid resilience, but we need to demonstrate that, we need to message that better. And then also something that was also brought up by Fausto is economic recovery of critical minerals. We all know geothermal brines are actually a mineral resource, sometimes categorized that way. So let's pull that into the value proposition of geothermal. So here's sort of a visual depiction of everything I just said. This is based on images I've seen from Canada and from the European different organizations. This is a work in progress. We're just building this right now, but really geothermal is an integrated energy solution. In the United States, we've really just focused on the power generation proposition. That alone is not going to get us where we need to go. We need to focus on the full value proposition, from direct use to just heat exchange in the subsurface. We need to focus on what we can do to hybridize geothermal with other renewable technologies to boost production where it's needed. We need to focus on mineral production. Like I said, chemical storage, thermal energy storage, mechanical storage in the subsurface, reuse of infrastructure like oil and gas wells that are in the subsurface, just sitting there waiting to be repurposed. Where they can't be repurposed for geothermal, can we put some gravity system in them to have a mechanical energy storage system? And then also, as is being demonstrated in Europe, let's reuse these wells also for carbon sequestration when we can, when we're doing reinjection into an underground reservoir anyway. Okay, this is a lot of text. And I guess really what I'll focus on is these 4 goals are goals set out by the US Department of Energy on the different sectors that need to be decarbonized. And so the subtext is how we think geothermal can play into that. And it matches what Fausto said. So, in terms of the electricity sector, on the right, we see this thermometer that goes up to 371 degrees C. We need to stop there. We can, so far we don't know how to commercially exploit supercritical systems, but we need a global international community researching this, and we have one. We think that this can be commercialized through different types of technologies. And then obviously that has major impacts in terms of the power production generation potential from one generation station or even one well. I mentioned other innovations in that space, EGS. There's another innovation happening a lot in the United States around closed loop geothermal systems for power, also called advanced geothermal systems. This is a sector that's emerging from sort of ex-oil and gas thinkers. So all of these technologies need to be looked at and commercialized if they can be. So for the industrial sector, obviously process heating, but also this question of producing minerals sustainably from brines that are coming out of the ground rather than going into hard rocks to extract them. Also, geothermal is a good distributed energy resource. A lot of the industrial sector in the United States is dispersed, and they use combined heat and power from diesel generation for their operations, but that could be replaced with geothermal. We could reuse oil and gas infrastructure for geothermal. That would help decarbonize the industrial sector, et cetera. So all the way down to the bottom end of the temperature thermometer here, for just deploying geothermal heat pumps anywhere and everywhere we can for decarbonization of buildings, agriculture, industry. So that's how it fits in with our mandate. Here are just some thoughts on international collaborations that we can, and I know some of this is underway, to tackle the global geothermal research challenge. So this is the NREL vision, and I would love to have the opportunity to discuss the ETIP vision and the geothermica vision here. We think that, there's a lot of work globally to be done around mitigating risk. This was just discussed by Fausto as well, and reducing cost, which would accelerate deployment. There's a lot of work to be done validating and demonstrating emerging technologies like the ones I just mentioned. We have a lot to learn from other countries in terms of how they are converting their oil and gas infrastructure to geothermal. Work to be done around hybrid technology validation, demonstration. One particular area we are doing international collaborations between the US and Europe is with respect to geothermal district energy systems and underground thermal energy storage. The asterisk stars here are projects we have current geothermica support on. So this is one. There's also work to be done on standardizing exploration and resource assessment methods. So, obviously minerals in geothermal brines are getting a fresh look. How can we bring that into the exploration of the resource? And let's develop a global geothermal resource map. I'm probably running out of time.
Yes, maybe if you're able to wrap up in a minute or so.
Yep, this is just a deep dive into a particular research collaboration we have with Europe right now on geothermal heating and cooling innovations. The opportunity in the United States is huge for this. Like I said, we only have 23 existing geothermal district heating systems. They're all 2G, second generation. They're old. None of them have cooling. None of them have ambient loops. All of these amazing innovations that you are doing in Europe, we have not deployed with geothermal. There's a lot of discussion. The map on the right shows our current district energy systems in the United States. They are all fossil, except for 23. And so, you know, on the left, it just is a schematic of all the different concepts. And so this is thank you to Geothermica for supporting a lot of collaborations around this, but we have a lot more work to do. I'll end there.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Maybe we'll keep the question a bit for the end of the webinar if we have time, and I will take your mention about the cooperation under Geothermica as an opportunity to call Alicia to the floor. So you should be able to share your screen. We can hear and see you.
How can I press in here? This will stop over sharing. Do you want to continue? Okay. I am. Oh, can I? Let's see. Desktop. I would like to share the desktop probably. Yeah, that's the correct open system.
Yeah, it's always different from one system to another.
Okay. That's a bit of a. Let me see again. I'm receiving some type of the information on my screen. I need to allow different things. No. I'm sorry for that. Didn't Microsoft.
It's maybe while you figure it out,
Yeah.
we can answer a question. So Amanda, there was a question for you regarding regarding the question of the importance of let's say shallow geothermal, so geothermal heat pumps compared to deep geothermal. How would you rate one or the other?
I wouldn't rate them because they, you know, different technologies work better in different environments. So maybe, oh, I'm not sharing anymore, but if the United States, the whole entire east half of the United States doesn't really have potential for deep geothermal, at least economically, until we can get to 5-10 kilometers. And so that whole area needs to look at geothermal heat pumps. The potential is much higher there for that in the near term. And then in the West, you know, it might be in the opposite situation. I mean, geothermal heat pumps are more of a geothermal anywhere technology today. So if I needed to rank, I would say that would make them just a little bit more important to consider in terms of immediate decarbonization schemes. But I think they're equally important, because geothermal power heat pumps at this time don't produce power, and we need geothermal power as well.
Great, thank you. Maybe while Alicia, we try to settle a bit your technical issue, being a bit conscious of time. Virginie, if you want to go ahead with your presentation, I will share the screen for you.
Yes, no problem.
Right. So, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Good afternoon, good morning. My name is Virginie Schmidley. Today I represent the French Geothermal Association, but also the cluster GEO-DEEP. GEO-DEEP is a group of 15 companies, French companies, involved in export activities. GEO-DEEP is also a partner of the project GEO-ENERGY Europe, which is a project funded by the European Commission under the COSME program, and whose aim is to support SMEs of our different clusters and associations to develop their activities worldwide. Yes, so on the first slide, globally, we can still say that the focus is more on geothermal power production, as it is the case for even energy fossil, with more importance given to electricity production instead of in comparison to heating production. But we observe in the actual context a different trend and a change of this paradigm, with growing importance given to heating and cooling solution, in that context, we can, it is already the case, geothermal energy has a nice role to play with even district heating and cooling application, but also, as I already said before, geothermal heat pumps and cooling applications. If you go to the next slide, Thomas, thank you. So some general observation coming from the GEO-ENERGY project. It's not a mixture, but geothermal in a project are not easy product to sell. We have to deal with both subsurface and building aspects. And on the contrary, it is easier to enter market thanks specific components like casing, anti-corrosion products. It is also commonly accepted in the geothermal community that the question of the geological resource risk remains very central, and especially with an energy like geothermal with very high capex. So we have to find solutions to secure both developers and to structure geothermal markets. And in that context, strategy of risk mitigation schemes are absolutely fundamental. In Europe, we can observe that different initiatives have already been developed, and this is the case for, we had the question I saw from Laurent in France, but yes, we have such kind of risk mitigation scheme in France, which has very helped to develop the geothermal solution like district heating in the Paris Basin. But we have seen such initiative also in other European countries, and this is very helpful to develop geothermal business, like in Netherlands, Germany, and recently in Hungary. Next point is to say that, more generally, there is a complexity linked to the energy markets, and in particular for geothermal energy, where you have to deal with, so to say, mining code, energy and environmental laws, social acceptability. And it is something, no, it is still on that slide, thank you. On the slide before, Thomas, thank you. Yeah, and
sorry, my finger slipped.
No problem. And yeah, we have observed that geothermal community remains small in the renewable landscape, and for that reason, we still face a lack of support in political and legal context. And one of our observations is that the structuration of this industry remains low at the international level. So yeah, thank you. To the next, if you can move to the next. So in the framework of our project, of GEO-ENERGY project, we have considered the following points to implement an export and international strategy. First of all, it is clear that it is very important that every country needs to improve its business framework for its own geothermal industry. When talking about mining, environmental, legal context, support schemes, risk mitigation scheme, structuration and training of its value chain. Without a strong domestic market, it is complicated to do export activities. So that's why during GEO-ENERGY Europe Strain 2, we have elaborated an operational strategy of internationalization that I will explain in the next slide. And this strategy is very linked to the principle of innovation. We have seen before during the ethics presentation that innovation don't need to be understood only under the technological definition, but it is also non-technical subject, with also every topic linked to the transfer with other industries like other renewable energies, but also other subsurface industries, oil and gas, extraction of the materials. And it is also very important to consider innovation under the framework of financial insurance scheme legal tools. On the next slide. This is just to explain how we have elaborated during GEO-ENERGY project or operational process of capacity building activities. This strategy has been first defined on the determination of 4 target countries that are Chile, Canada, Kenya, and Costa Rica. Those markets have been identified through the regarding the dynamism of the different, of course, geothermal market of that countries. And then we have different phases to get familiar with those markets. So first we have a first phase of collection of data and a phase of identification of key stakeholders. A second phase was dedicating to the organization of training session between our SMEs and the country stakeholders, and that was done during webinar. And a third phase was more concretely dedicated to organization of market visit on site, so directly in the country, with preparation of the agenda in collaboration with partners and local contacts, and if possible, organization of site visits. It is true that we had to take into account that we were working in a COVID context, which for sure was not in favor of these capacity building activities. And concretely, we only started to implement our capacity building activities spring this year. Another point of attention was that we tried to organize our activities during international events, and that was the case for Canada during the same week of the PDAC, and for Kenya during the Kenya Geothermal Conference. An important phase is also to be considered in the last one, is the follow-up phase, where we have to continue and to continue discussion with the partnership we met during the market visit. And just as a last slide, just before Thomas. Thank you. So we still have to organize one capacity building activity for Costa Rica, but already we can have some lesson learned from the different market visit we did for Canada, Chile, and Kenya. It is very important to have an appropriate preparation time between training session and market visits, to gain information, to invite key stakeholders, to identify main topics. Truly, the market visits are completely fundamental. It's a fundamental part of the process. It is necessary to improve knowledge about the geothermal market. It is also very important to remove received opinions and to fix sustainable partnership. And as I said before, it is very useful to have a structured follow-up phase of all that activities. And just some words, sorry, to wrap up my presentation. Even if we have been very slowed down because of the sanitary crisis, we can never say that GEO-ENERGY project was a very good framework to initiate an European export strategy for all our SMEs. And it is true that concretely the supports given by GEO-ENERGY Europe was very appropriate to help our SMEs to spend time to get involved in these capacity building activities. And that's it for me. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Virginie. So no apology, Alicia, for the technical issues. Well, no, actually, we can see your screen perfectly. So yes, if you want to go ahead. The floor is yours.
I'm glad to hear it. Welcome, everyone. Hello from Iceland. Very sorry for this, but well, it's always the first time they say. No, let me share this in an appropriate way. Are you gonna have questions for the, because I came like maybe on, for Virginia, I came on a very, I was so excited to try it, so I might cut
yeah, maybe
answer.
we will first do your presentation and then we can take a few minutes afterwards. But if some people have to leave at 5, that way they can also hear you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm going to present the Geothermica, the increasing pace of coordinated research and innovation of the geothermal energy. Sorry, my name is Elizabeth Rastakosa. I'm happily representing the Geothermica office as an office manager and coming as well from the Geothermal Research Cluster. And a little bit as the front of the Geothermal Research Cluster here, we have cooperating with Geothermica for a really long time. We are supporting the actions of the office, and our vision, which we are focusing on, is the impartial collaboration platform. That we're building this platform for the impartial collaboration that builds the bridges in between the research, industry, and as well public outreaches for the benefit of society. And here as well, that's a bit of a input where we can find where the strengths come from us, where the Geothermica as well is needed, having those type of backgrounds. And our history comes from around 10 years ago, when the geothermal ERANET was initiated by key countries of Iceland, Netherlands, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland. After a lot of different discussions, talks, meetings, and the representatives of the member states, of the national funding agencies, of the ministries came together and put up an idea as well for bringing up and as the geothermal ERANET network and the project, which collaborated and bring to the table 12 partners from 11 countries. And in the end, they were working on and emphasizing the minimizing the fragmentation of the sector, building European know-how, and as well contributing to the framework and the policy. And they're part of those partners in there brought together as well the next idea for the Horizon 2020, co-funded by the European Commission, and decided to push it forwards and accelerate the geothermal deployment as 20 program owners and managers from 16 countries and regions. And as previously, we already heard how the geothermal deployment is very important from the US part. In here, we will not only focusing on fostering the engagement and of the geothermal partners in here, but as well bringing different type of the joint calls alive and supporting the innovation from that perspective. We already have 3 calls which are active, and the last one is actually still being developed, so it's hard to say when it's definitely starting. However, the launch already been, we have chosen the projects which are now in the state of signing the agreements. However, in here we had a full for the Geothermica full engagement of the member states, and what is very important in all work we are doing, and the speakers already said, it's as well what we're calling here, it's a mutual trust. So we continue strong emphasis on widening the consortium, not only on the European way, but as well bringing our friends from the other sides. We have in here state of place of having the coordination here in Iceland and bringing together the partners, as we mentioned, from Europe, Iceland, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, Ireland, Belgium, France, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Slovenia, Romania, and Turkey. And in addition, we had partners from United States coming a little bit later in the partnership, and Norway as Research Council Norway came together with Department of Energy. We are having a very strong support from European Commission, as the project is supported by the co-funding from the European Union Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation program. And in here, what I definitely can tell you that the member states and our friends, we get a very full support of the and foster engagement, long-term networking, excellent as well science and technological development, and as well the support to different calls. We are finishing the project, or project has finished actually already, not like yesterday, since we were like in June, but yesterday we had the last time for the so-called European periods and report end, and that's bring us a little bit way of thinking how as well the cooperation comes and how it is important to bring together different member states and different solutions to the table. Geothermal as well is striving on the joint calls and is focusing on the research and demonstration projects, bringing innovative geothermal energy solutions for the closer to the commercial deployment, and encouraging industrial participation to the leverage of public sector investments. We already have been running in full scale one first call with the European Commission, which is closed now. These were 8 projects funded. We had approximately 44 million euros of a project total cost, where the geothermal funding came from the 55%. Then the second call, 2019, 2 years later, from the call 1, came with execution of 7 projects launched and the total cost of 39 million euros. And we gather this approximately 61% of the funding from the Geothermal, and this is mentioned the new countries as well, involving USA and Norway. And then the third call, we were thinking this vision of and the need of deployment and the need of developing the research was so strong, and we came across that it would be great to have another call. However, how to do it, not in the same way, but a little bit different. So we decided, and we came together to conclusion with our friends from JPP Smart Energy Systems, that it would be great if we could put the initiative together. And that's how we opened the call number 3 with a great cooperative scheme with another network. And we are still going to announce the winners. However, we have approximately 14 projects who are going to start, and approximately, we cannot say all the numbers here because we don't know exactly, but it's 45 million euros in total cost, and as well we have requested funding of around 32 2 million euros. We are really happy how it's striving and going, and we definitely can talk here about this European research and innovation network. So this is our as well aim, to keep the network alive, to bring it to the table, to support those innovative projects which are really closer to the commercial deployment, and give them the floor, give them as well the opportunities to exchange. As far as I know, and you probably know, maybe some of you are in those projects, that we are exchanging this knowledge as well as a human factor. We know that some of the persons are working on one of the projects or another, and that's what is beautiful and how the amazing collaboration is growing. Geothermal member states and regions definitely play a crucial role in here. And as well, what is another part of very important is this value chain of approach and balancing on different levels: policy, regulatory, and decision-making. We are all working on those 3 levels: research, public authorities, and industry, and the Geothermal stands somewhere in between. However, we have as well some partners from other departments, like implementation working groups of deep geothermal, which we as well strongly work with them on next solutions, next visions. We are building the implementation plans for new ambitious funding and accelerating the geothermal deployment in that level. Sorry, I can here. One of the latest as well, it's nice to mention because it will be more of you will be hearing more and more soon about it. It's CTP Impact Network, where we are joining as a geothermal network. We are joining in together with other 8 networks, building up the platform, boosting and accelerating the clean energy transition, building up on yearly joint programming cycles, broadening the knowledge community, creating this impact network, striving on the co-creation with need owners and innovation of the ecosystems. And we are bringing our knowledge to the table on the TRI4 so-called, and on the efficient zero emissions heating and cooling solutions. And more will be slowly coming to the table step by step. And that's what we are feeling. It is really important to deep into it. And we have been thinking a lot since we're closing the projects, what are the keys of the Geothermica success and what we can share with you, how to build the platforms. And if you join them, it's definitely this lean, flexible, solution-driven governance. I mean, governance is as well the thing to keep. Willingness to learn from each other, and that's one of the steps, and as well help one each other for the benefit of all. And the more important is the trust and the fairness. So that's what we have learned in the consortium of Geothermica, and it's amazing collaborative thing how the people were actually solving the issues on different aspects which we're bringing in there. The Geothermica impacts, there's we feel it's a strong one. Definitely Geothermica network will provide an outstanding contribution to the growth of the innovative concepts of geothermal projects, bringing together major national funding agencies with a strategically oriented aim. That's definitely one of the very important part, which I can now say thank you to all of you partners in Geothermica, since we're closing this, and it's very emotional for all of us. Definitely organizing and launch 3 success calls. That's the calls which are totally different. Maybe the scopes are similar, but partners are totally different, and the cooperative thing is totally different within them. Gather the investment budgets for the calls and the strong involvement of the private sector as well. Strengthening the geothermal sectors through strategic activities, roundtables, webinars, which were very popular lately, collaborations with different working groups. Forged links between the member states, which is very, very important in here as well. So we can establish different guarantee schemes for geothermal and exchange. And as well, now we are into the contribution of the CTP Impact Network, which is TRI4, which is coming up. And whenever you feel like, and it's very important for you, please don't hesitate and send me a line, and we will definitely assist on either solution-driven or be just in touch to find the new vision and collaborations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. So I think we're a little bit short on time, but anyway, we will try to answer all the questions at least later on. But thank you all for your very nice presentations. It was a very interesting session to follow, and indeed it is worthwhile to have ever more international cooperation beyond just our usual regional or national focus. And Geothermica is a very good example of such an initiative. I really take away of this session that we overall are in quite a strong agreement around the priorities. So it's important to bring all these new technologies to the market because they really open a new realm of possibility. It's also very important to focus on what we know how to do and maybe improve a bit the conditions to do it. So that's especially true for things like district heating and shallow geothermal, where often we are a bit lacking the financial or regulatory framework to do so. And here again, international cooperation allows to get what works in other countries, in other regions, and apply it in new areas. And that is hopefully something we are going to do a lot more of. So thank you all for your attention, and you'll be able to indeed find again the GEO-ENERGY Europe meta cluster at EGC, where there will be a presence in the exhibition space, and probably also some presence in inside events. So thank you all, and I wish you a good rest of the day, a good end of the afternoon for the Europeans, and a good full day for American colleagues. So have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.